We are privileged today, as part of our Centennial Speaker Series, to have with us the Honorable Judge Rudolph Pyle III. Judge Pyle is a graduate of Anderson University. He studied history and political science here. And after graduating from AU, he headed to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, where he received a master's degree in public policy. And then in 2009, he was appointed as the judge of the Madison County Circuit Court. And then in 2012, he was appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels to be the judge on the Indiana Court of Appeals. He is a person who leads with faith. He is an advocate for others and a visionary leader. And he's going to be interviewed today by our own Dr. Michael Frank. So will you help me in welcoming Judge Rudy Pyle?
Oh, it's great to have you here.
Well, glad to be here. Thanks.
You know, graduate in 1992.
92 was when I graduated.
Degrees in political science and history.
History and political science.
You've held a number of interesting jobs over your career, and we'll get to some of those. But most recently, judge on the Indiana Court of Appeals.
Yes.
You also teach a course here every spring for us.
Yes.
An expert in Fourth Amendment issues, so search and seizure, right?
Some would say.
Yeah, and I know that you spent some time in Turkey.
Yes.
Helping advise them on their judicial system.
Yeah, we gave a couple of speeches in 2013.
Okay. But your relationship with Anderson University goes way back. Your father was a faculty member here in the Department of Sociology, Social Work, Criminal Justice, and Family Science.
Yeah, he came from, we lived in Rhode Island, and then in 1987, they moved here so he could accept a position on the faculty, and then I went to the United States Military Academy Preparatory School and was in the Army for a year. Right. And then came in 88.
Okay. So how old were you when your father...
18.
Okay. But you were in the military academy before you came here, so you didn't spend any time living in the Anderson community.
No, we would come to camp meeting here.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was familiar with, I knew what AU was before I came to school.
Right. So how many times did you come to camp meeting?
I came 2 or 3 times.
Okay. And do you have a fond memory from any of those?
You know, when I came, I was like, wow, this is such a small school. I was like, I don't want to go to a small school. So, and I think God was looking down at me like, yeah, I got other plans, but you're coming. You're coming. And, when I got here, I have to say, I had a great experience at Anderson University. Would have never dreamed that I would have had such a good experience.
But Anderson University wasn't your first choice.
No, I wanted to go to the United States Military Academy. I had, at the height of the Cold War, I wanted to be in the military, wanted to drive tanks, and thought that was the call for my life. But he allowed me to go to the Military Academy Prep School, spent a year there. It was a very formative experience in my life because the academic rigor was something that was a notch above what I was expecting, and so that was really where I got my academic discipline from. And so 2 weeks before graduation, they made their final cuts, and the last 12 of us, they gave us honorable discharges and said, time to go home.
So 2 weeks before you were going to start?
They started cutting people 2 weeks into the year, so they weed people out.
So you didn't know you were coming to Anderson University until like 2 weeks before classes started?
June. I was in June was when I put in a late application.
Okay. And so did you look at other places outside of...
At that time, no.
Okay.
I was in Indiana. It made sense because my father was here. And remitted tuition doesn't hurt either, by the way.
So what was in your time at Anderson University, what was the most significant thing you did academically?
Academically, I would probably say going to Model United Nations.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that, going to Harvard Model United Nations.
What made that a significant experience for you?
I think it was, you meet all these kids from, the big name schools like Harvard and Yale, and then they see you from Anderson University, and I'm like, oh, these little hayseeds, here they come. They're going to treat you like you don't quite know it. But we always performed very well. the team from Anderson University. And I kind of developed a lot of pride from that, of going to those events. And many students would be recognized as model delegates going to that. And so Anderson University, I felt, has always prepared me and my fellow alums well.
Okay. What about, excuse me, what about the most significant thing you did that wasn't academically related?
Probably on the soccer team, because then it wasn't a varsity sport, it was a club team. And so Scott Fridley was on the team, and so it was a bunch of guys just getting in our cars, driving to different universities, and guys, wouldn't wash their jerseys between games, and so, you're in this car with this nasty, sweaty smell. It was just a bunch of guys playing because they loved the game, because it wasn't a varsity sport. We were just going, representing the university, and then over the 4 years, it became a recognized sport, and I thoroughly enjoyed the 4 years playing soccer.
Okay. Who was the most important person that you encountered during your time at AU? And what made that person significant to you?
I don't know if I can just say one.
Okay.
Dr. Nelson was, just because he was the chair of the political science department, and I had the most contact with him. Paula Marsh Roberts was probably the one person who inspired me to want to become a lawyer. Then President Nicholson, President Edwards, obviously my father, because, he was here too. There were just so many people who intervened and helped and mentored.
Okay. What about, there was a chapel requirement when you attended. What impact did the chapel program have on your faith journey?
Then I probably wouldn't have recognized it. I was not serious about my relationship with Christ while I was here. I would say I was a convenient Christian. When it was convenient for me to claim Christianity, I would, and when it wasn't, I wouldn't. And so, I'd come to chapel because I had to. If I didn't have to, I probably wouldn't have. But now, as I look back and have become much more serious about my walk with Christ, it laid a foundation of what the value of worship is. It's not about just being here. It's about the strength you get from being in fellowship with other believers and those who are searching. There is value in that. And, the Bible speaks about being in communion with others. And so that's the value of it that I recognize now.
Would you say that you encountered that same kind of value in your other experiences on campus? Like with the soccer team or classes?
Yeah. I have always felt, when I went to William & Mary, when I went to IU, Maurer School of Law, I have never felt unprepared.
Okay.
Academically. Never. I think AU academically prepared me for all of my experiences. All of those, being on the soccer team, being in Model UN, being in student government, all of those things prepared me.
Okay, so you were in student government. You were the student government president.
Yep, I was.
Other key achievements for you during your undergraduate career? Anything that stands out?
No, those are it.
Okay. No social clubs?
No, I wasn't in a social club.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Soccer team probably fulfilled that for me.
Okay. So after you graduated, you didn't go immediately to law school. You went to get your master's in public policy.
Went to William & Mary. Thought I applied to a bunch of law schools, but they gave me a little bit of money. And, thinking long term, I was like, how can I set myself apart from others who are getting a law degree? Well, a master's degree might help with that. So I went to William & Mary.
So you were really thinking that, after you graduated, you were going to go to law school.
I was going to go, yeah. But I was sitting in employment law class, and I distinctly remember having this conversation with myself. It's like, dude, aren't you tired of eating ramen noodles? Yeah. It's like, well, why don't you get a job? Hey, that's a good idea. So that's when I was like, that's enough school, and that's when I came back to Indiana, and I decided, if you're going to do something, you might as well do something you've always wanted to do, and I always wanted to be a police officer.
Okay.
My faculty and staff at William & Mary looked at me like everybody else was going to work for the CIA, the State Department, all these other policy think tanks, and they looked at, you want to be a police officer? I was like, yeah. And so I came back here and I joined the Indiana State Police and did that for 3.5 years, and that was fabulous.
So from a master's in public policy to state police officer, what was the, was there a moment during your time as a police officer where your faith was really challenged?
Yeah, on several occasions. I mean, you, as a police officer, you're not meeting people at their best. You're just not. I mean, that's just a part of the job. And so, you sometimes are confronted with people who are angry and will call you out of your name. And, there are times when, I got hot, and you're really pushed to the brink. And that happens. It's happened more than once, and you have to sometimes sit there and I look back now, and God intervened on a couple of occasions and said, you need to calm down.
Can you give an example?
We were watching this house one time. It was in Gary, Indiana. It was that time when Gary, Indiana was the murder capital of the United States. And so we were watching, guys had some night goggles, and they were watching this house, and it was a crack house, and people were going up. And so we walked up to the house and did what they call a knock and talk. We just walked up, and the guy came out. We asked him what was going on. Could we come in? He let us come in, and we found about a bunch of paraphernalia. And for some reason, he looked at me and just locked onto me, and I was just standing there, He looked at me, and he said, "You MF this?" Started using the N-word, and just, started really letting me have it. And the guy who was with me looked at me, and he must have seen the change in my face, because I looked at him like, I will knock you out. He called me what? And he quickly kind of said, let's go over here. And it was at that point I was like, you've got to put into place some mechanisms to just calm down. And I did. I remember having to go back to my car and say a word of prayer, because I was fired up.
Can you talk about your faith journey? You said that when you were here as an undergraduate that you weren't really serious about your faith. When did that occur? Because you're talking now, you're a state police officer, and you're going back to your car to pray.
The majority of my life, I really wasn't serious about my walk with Christ until 2008, when I found out that I was going to be a dad. It was like God. I was like, holy cow. And then God looked at me and was kind of like, are you ready to do things my way now? And I was like, yeah. And that was when he really said to me, these are some things I need you to do. I need you to get serious about being in your word every day and spending time with me. I need you to get serious about finding a church home. I need you to get serious about tithing. And I said, what? Really? And that's the one place in the Bible where God challenges us, right? In Malachi, I think it is, where he says, try me, and I'll pour out a blessing you can't even contain. So you have to remember, this is 2008. I wasn't making a whole lot of money. It was a decent salary for a single person. But now my student loans had come in. I was a new dad and was like, Lord, how in the world am I going to pay my bills? And he really impressed upon me, try me. And I did. I started doing all of those things. And this is the height of the mortgage foreclosure crisis. They're not handing out mortgages anymore. And I remember going just kind of on a whim to a mortgage. And this is, it's probably eight months in. Just stopped by this mortgage company, went in, and because I needed to find a place cheaper than what I was in now. And I just told him what I was looking for. He punched in some numbers and said, yeah, you're pre-qualified. I said, you put in my social security number? And he said, yeah, you're pre-qualified. Within 30 days of that, I was in a house. And I was like, wow. And it wasn't done then. Within 30 days of that, I got appointed as a judge. The opportunity for a judge was coming. And so God effectively doubled my salary, and it's been like that. I wouldn't, there's been ups and downs, but it was then when I could clearly look back in my life and see, even through my failures, Romans 8:28. All things work for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. He used everything in my life to bring me to where I am now. You know, if you had told me in 2000 when I graduated from law school, hey, within 10 years, you're going to be a judge, I would have told you to put the crack pipe down. It doesn't happen. You don't become a judge usually that fast. And then 3 years after that, to be appointed on the Court of Appeals, I would have told you, to stop smoking that crack pipe. It doesn't happen. Because I look at my students at the law school down there and I say, you never know what opportunities are going to come. But God doesn't bless you without preparing you to accept the blessing. So he has used all of these experiences to make sure I was ready for what he had for me. And I would have never have dreamed that at this point, 47, I'd be where I am now.
Right.
But he's been faithful. He really has.
So you went from, you were a state police officer, and from there, then you went to law school.
Went to law school. It was about 3.5 years. So in 1997, went to IU Bloomington, or what's now Maurer Law School. Yep.
And then immediately out of law school, you became a prosecutor.
No, my first job out of law school was a law clerk for Judge Darden at the Court of Appeals. So I stayed there 4 years, and that was a great experience because you learn, all you do is research and write about Indiana law. And so it was a great job right out of law school to just immerse myself in Indiana law before I went and actually practiced as a prosecutor. So.
Right, and you were a prosecutor in Madison County.
I had the opportunity to work for two prosecutors, Rodney Cummings, who's the current prosecutor now, and also Tom Broderick, who is the current mayor of the city of Anderson. So I worked for both of them over a course of years.
What was the most challenging thing you experienced as a prosecutor?
Probably just time management, managing trials. They could come. The first year that I was a prosecutor, I had 16 jury trials, and a lot of them were right after another. So it was like 1 week you're doing a trial, but you got to prepare for the next one, the very next week. So you're sending out this, you're learning how to manage these multiple trials and multiple cases, and they throw you in the deep end. There's no like school. It's like, here's your files, have fun. And so it was really learning time management skills really quickly to do that.
And you were a prosecutor at two different times, and in between you set up your own practice.
I had my own private practice here. I had an office here in Anderson and one in Indianapolis, and did family law, criminal defense work. Represented some people on appeals, so it was a varied practice. Yeah.
What was it like switching from being a prosecutor to being a defense attorney?
Some people can do it really well, and I watched some people be prosecutors and switch to defense attorneys, and they can do it. For me, it was a little bit more challenging. I'm a much better prosecutor than I am a defense attorney, but it was good to get that experience. I needed that and deliberately wanted to do that.
So what's the most important thing you learned?
As a defense attorney?
Yeah.
Listen to your clients, and you don't ever roll over for the state. Your job is to test the state's case. It's not to get somebody off. It's to test the state's case, to make sure that they did not violate your client's rights, make sure that they get a fair trial. You just don't roll over. You take depositions, you question the police officers, you question their investigation, and then you go back to your client and say, this is what we have. Here's the evidence, and this is my recommendation to you about what you should do.
Okay. But you prefer prosecuting?
I do.
Okay. What makes that more attractive to you?
I have a law and order sense of personality. I was a police officer. It fits my personality. I have a really deep sense of public service, of serving the public, protecting the public's interest, and I think that's why it's easier for me.
Yeah, where do you think that sense of public service came from?
My father and mother were very active in the community when we were growing up. My father really instilled in me and my brother and sister an understanding of the civil rights movement. Before Martin Luther King's birthday was a holiday, he would never let us go to school, but we would stay home, and he would read about, show us films about the civil rights movement, and that had a big impact on me. And he would always say, and I say this to my son, he would always say, "You are somebody," and make us repeat it back to him. Just that sense that you are somebody, you're not junk because God doesn't make any junk. Just that, all of that, just instilling in us a sense of value, and that you have a responsibility, the community that you live in, to participate and be productive.
Did you pick up on any of that public service element in your time at AU?
Oh, sure. Trias trips, public service opportunities, the social clubs and things that they do, all of that.
Did you go on a Trias trip?
I did. I went on a couple. We went to Mexico on one. I went to Russia on another, and Europe on another. They were great experiences. If you get the opportunity to go, absolutely do it. Absolutely do it.
Okay. After your time as a prosecutor, you were appointed to the First Circuit Court in Madison County as a judge. How did that come about?
Unfortunately, we had one of the judges died. Judge Hopper died, and so that created a vacancy. And so that Judge Hoppy is now that judge, and we were colleagues. We had worked together. And then Judge Spencer resigned or retired in the same year. This is very odd to have two vacancies in the same county at very close proximity, and so that I got the second vacancy.
And how did you move from being a trial judge to a judge on the appellate court? And can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two kinds of judgeships?
Yeah, trial courts, they conduct trials. It's what you think of, Law and Order and all those shows. Appellate courts are courts of review. When you appeal, you're basically saying a mistake was made at the trial level. And so what we do at the appellate level is we look at the record, the transcript, and make a determination based upon the written record about whether or not the trial court made an error on admitting a piece of evidence, whether or not a confession was forced. But it's just reviewing the record. It's basically you're an umpire. And making calls about whether or not the rules were followed. And so we don't hold live hearings like they do in the trial court. We review the paper record.
So what does your typical day look like as an appellate court judge?
It varies. We have a lot of flexibility because now everything's electronic. I can be anywhere in the world as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection, and I can read and type and write. But I go to Indianapolis. I drive from here down to Indianapolis, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and usually an 8-hour day, but sometimes I'll come back early. The flexibility is nice because you can run your errands, do whatever, come back and then finish out the workday here at home or somewhere else. But it allows me to teach here at AU. I teach at also the law school in Mauer, teach trial advocacy down there. So it's a very flexible schedule, but you can get, last night was a late night. I was there till 9 p.m. But it's a lot of reading, researching, and writing.
Okay. So you have kind of a unique perspective on our criminal justice system, because you've been a police officer, you've been a criminal defense attorney, you've been a prosecutor, you've been a trial judge, and you've been an appellate court judge. What would you like us to know? What does your perspective offer? The most important thing we need to know about the criminal justice system from your perspective?
Having gone to other countries like Turkey
Yeah.
and seen their justice system, I have tremendous respect and confidence in our criminal justice system. It's got problems, with people not following the rules, whether it's officers or not. But overwhelmingly, juries get it right. Overwhelmingly, the police do follow the rules. And overwhelmingly, judges and the attorneys want to do right. They want to make the right call. And so when you travel overseas, that's not the case everywhere. We are very lucky to have what we have. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't stop improving because, not everybody gets a fair trial. Yes, there is still racial profiling. And we need to take steps to eliminate that. But, I'm very proud of our judiciary and the role that it plays. Very, very proud.
So as you look back from the time that your dad accepted a position here until today, what are those things from AU that have really carried you through? The things that you have taken with you throughout these different parts of your career?
This is AU. It's not IU. And IU is a fine institution. It's not Purdue. It's not Notre Dame. It's AU. Jesus Christ is Lord here, and we're not ashamed to say it. And it's that underpinning. I didn't realize it so much when I was here, but it's just that underpinning that now, as I'm older and look back on, that served as a foundation. And very proud that sometimes when I'm traveling around the country, where'd you do your undergrad? Oh, Anderson University. I was like, oh, isn't that small Christian college in Indiana? That people know about Anderson University. So it tells me that Anderson is still doing a very good job, and that there are alums from Anderson University doing great things out in the world. And this is a place to be proud of, to be proud to be from. And even if you're here and you're wondering, why do I have to go to chapel? Why can't we do X here? Why can't we do this here? There's a reason for it. Everybody came here, knew it was a Christian university. And this is a place where even if you don't believe and you're wondering, what is this Jesus? Who is this Jesus? It's okay. Because God's using this place. You might not realize it until 20 or 30 years down the road, but this experience God uses to form your life. And for me, it was, years down the road when I really began to value that.
Now you mentioned Romans 8:28. Can you say more about what that verse means to you?
It means even when I fail, and I do all the time, even when I fall short, he'll still use that for his glory. And his glory is automatically my best, for my best. So that's what's amazing as I look back on my life. Even when I've fallen short, even when other people have done things designed to hurt and hinder, God uses it all to put me where I am today. And he does that for everyone. Everyone who believes, he will use the worst and still turn it into his purpose. He'll further his purpose.
Can you talk about one or two of those times when you've really had to fall back on that verse?
Like I said, when my son was born, that was a really stressful time for me, and it's been a miracle because I have a great relationship with him, a great relationship with his mom. God's given me the resources to take care of him. I drive 60,000 miles a year. Not one accident on the road. Just all of that is a miracle to me. He just provides.
When people, you mentioned that as you talk with people about where you went to school and they recognize Anderson University, how do you characterize the institution to the people that you encounter?
Well, I tell them it's a Christian university. It's a Christian liberal arts university. It's small, and that was good for me. I probably wouldn't have done as well academically if I had gone to a large school like IU. And that's different for everybody, but for me, I really appreciated the small size, the fact that the faculty was readily available, and I utilized that. I would always talk to my professors, and the small size and the fact that it was a Christian university is something I plug a lot to people when they ask about it.
Was it difficult going here with your father working here?
No, it really wasn't. I never had him in class because I was like, I had him all my life, so I was like, I really don't want to have him in class too. I mean, it's just I used to joke about him, but it wasn't difficult, you know. No, it wasn't. I didn't have. People would always ask that. I would joke though. My mom went here too, and she actually took a class with my father. And I went to my dad and I was like, "This is messed up, man. You're sleeping with students. What are you doing?" So that's messed up. He got a chuckle out of that, but no, it was not difficult. And my mom worked here too. So actually, my mother worked on campus and my father worked on campus, and I actually thought that was great.
Did you stop by and see him?
I would,
Yeah.
regularly. It's like, "Can I borrow some money?" You know.
So, what about your son? Would you want your son to attend AU, and why?
I would. You know, you're kind of torn about it. There's the value of going away and, you know, spreading your wings. But I had a good experience here, and I would want him to have that too. So if he wanted to, I would absolutely be supportive of that.
What would you hope would be the imprint that Anderson University had on your son?
The same, that foundation that Jesus Christ is Lord, that we live life according to his principles and not our own, because it's not our life, it's his. You know, and everybody learns that at a different rate. But that would be the imprint I would want on him.
Okay. So, two more. If you could go back and do something different in your undergraduate career at AU, what would that be?
I would have wished that I had taken my relationship with Christ a little more seriously. But again, you know, that's a part of where I am now. I mean, so I don't know if I go back and change it because it's what brought me to where I am now. So I'd probably just leave it alone.
Okay. What is the dumbest thing you did as an undergraduate?
Dude, you think I'm actually going to tell you? I mean,
What's the most fun you had as an undergraduate?
fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't see through that as a judge. Right? I had a lot of fun with the guys on the soccer team. You know, Scott Fridley and we had a lot of good times traveling. The triath trips were a lot of fun. Joking with my roommate. I mean, I don't know if there's one thing. The entire experience was good overall here. When I look back, I think fondly of Anderson University.
Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you for
Is that good political?
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah. If you could help thank Judge Pyle for being here today.